All right. We're here in Massy-en-Cambrai in France, and I am here on location at the castle. So as everyone starts joining, we're going to have a massive audience today. I'm really excited to have you guys all out here. This is an absolutely spectacular location. And we're in early spring, so it hasn't really bloomed yet. It hasn't blossomed, but it's going to be incredible in the next couple of months. It's going to become really, really fabulous, really elaborate out here with all the green covering the castle and the animals that we're going to be photographing with. So that's kind of the topic of what we're talking about today, is essentially photographing people with animals. All right, and I see a lot of familiar faces on. We've got the great Hans J. Paul. Good to see you. We've got the amazing Jane Ritchie. I just got to photograph with these guys in Newport Beach, which was incredible. The amazing Dan Rothschild, good to see you. And we have a lot of familiar faces on. This is fantastic. All right. And we have some amazing panelists as well. So let's see here. All right, guys. So as everyone starts joining, I'm just going to put a few polls up to just kind of ask you guys a few questions, because I always like to know what type of photography you guys participate in, what you guys shoot. Now I don't specifically have animals on here, but if you guys photograph and incorporate animals into any aspect of this type of photography, whether it's weddings, whether it's portraiture, fashion, fine art, that's essentially what we're going to be talking about today. I'd love to know, kind of get to know what you guys like to photograph, because I want to tailor this, of course, to what what our topic is today. All right. So, all right, you guys. So, welcome. Celebrity fashion photographer Kevin Michael Schmitz here. I'm on location at my own castle that I just bought. It's a 13th century, 49-room, 40,000 square foot castle in Massy-en-Cambrai. It's a few hours outside of Paris, and it's an unbelievable, one of the most incredible locations that I've ever been able to photograph at. So I'm really fortunate that I get to own this castle. And yes, we're going to be holding elite photographic workshops on location at the castle, so you guys can come enjoy it with me. And we're going to be photographing with animals. We're going to be bringing in spectacular horses. We're going to be photographing fashion, high-end fashion with world-class top supermodels from Paris, riding horses through the park here, through this courtyard. And we're also going to be, there's also a lot of other surprises and other animals that we're going to be incorporating into shoots on location here. So since I'm here, I'm photographing for the next few weeks, and I'm producing a massive scale fashion editorial and even some advertising specifically for the castle. I thought it'd be a good opportunity to conduct our webinar live from the castle, so you guys get a little bit of a taste of it. It's from about 700 years ago. It was built in the 13th century, owned by Count de Mont. And essentially this castle has been passed down through generations throughout this family, and then eventually came into the hands of a really famous fashion designer that their parents had owned it. And it's been featured in Vogue, it's been featured in Vanity Fair, and now that I own it, it's going to have a lot more production here. I'm thinking Downton Abbey style TV shows, also featuring this as one of the episodes of my TV show Great Escapes as a Great Escape for our second season, and of course doing massive scale photographic shoots along with shoots with animals. So I'm really excited, and I know many of you guys on right now, I'll probably see you here at some point with one of our epic experiences on location here in France. So the topic for today, guys, is photographing people with animals. And this is one of a challenging aspects of photography, because animals don't always cooperate. You know, animals sometimes are difficult. Animals can be a challenge to photograph, because essentially, you know, they're not necessarily there, obviously, to be photographed. Although I have to say, when I bring my little Pomeranian Marshmallow, she literally runs on set right to where the models are, turns around and poses and is knows how to pose for a shoot. And there are trained animals that do that. And it's really fortunate when you have animals that can do that. I've had the opportunity to photograph with 500-pound live tigers for musicians and rappers. I've been able to photograph with all different types of horses. I've been able to photograph with alpacas. Last week, we were shooting in Colorado with a Bactrian camel, which was incredible. It's like a Mongolian double humper camel. And that was a treat. And it was also very, very, very challenging. And also we even shot last week with reindeer, which is something that I have never done. And I don't know when the next time we'll have that opportunity to do it again. But I did want to show you guys just a little sneak peek of literally what we shot last week during one of the photography workshop series lifestyle photographic workshops. And this is just a short little video, but I wanted to share with you guys a sneak peek of photographing and filming animals
sequences
with people.
Really creates a dynamic. Kevin Michael Schmitz here, and I'm on location for the photography workshop series Winter Wonderland Experience. Now we're out in the Breckenridge Silverthorne area. We're up at about 11,000 feet, and we're creating mind-blowing slice of life content. It incorporates props, it incorporates animals, it incorporates world-class models flown in from Los Angeles and around the country. Creating scenes in which we're having that moment absolutely unfold, creating it, and then capturing it, and then making that slice of life moment occur. Not just photographic, but also shooting different types of sequences really creates a dynamic lifestyle commercial in addition to the high-end photographic content. So I'm really excited, and this is absolutely some of the greatest lifestyle content we've ever created in the snow.
That gives you just a sneak peek of what we shot last week on location at one of our lifestyle workshops, and it was a lot of fun. But as you can imagine, extremely challenging because we're photographing people with animals. Now, luckily, we had some professional models. I actually flew in some of my top models from Los Angeles. We had world-class models that had just come in town from Texas and New Mexico, and then of course top models from that we had living in the area in Denver. But we had some incredible talent, and I was really excited that was willing to work with the animals, that could handle the animal. In fact, even riding that giant Bactrian camel. The thing is almost the size of an elephant, and very, very challenging to do, but the models rocked it. Obviously, the most challenging part was the weather because we're photographing at extreme cold temperatures, and that's a challenge. The animals seemed to be okay with it. They were totally fine because they're, especially the Bactrian camels, used to be in the Mongolian steppes, so it's a very cold climate and it's used to it. But sometimes the animals really struggled. Like for instance, when we're photographing with that horse in the scene, the Clydesdale horse really struggled stepping through the snow. It felt uncomfortable for them. And actually the same thing with the Bactrian camel. It would struggle with the snow and would try to avoid the snow. So when we're coaching the models and the animals into the action for the sequence that we're photographing and filming, we have to make sure that we can have essentially kind of like a track or to lay out a place in which that animal can run, or that animal can walk towards us, or it can have some sort of movement. The Bactrian camel really struggled with staying still, whereas like a horse is very easy to make stand still, but it kind of wanted to bulldoze through. So literally you go to stop it, and the thing, like no matter what, even the owner and the handler, it would not stop. It would just try to plow through. But it was a nice camel. It was easy to ride for the model that rode the camel kind of in between the two humps. But as far as stopping it, the thing did not want to stop. It wanted to keep running around. But we also want to start to notice trends. And one of the things that you got to be very aware is, what is the animal thinking about? What is the animal's perspective here? And in the perspective of shooting with that giant Bactrian camel, I think it was important that to be able to find out, okay, what was its goal? And in the case of this Bactrian camel, the goal of this Bactrian camel, it wanted to go towards the area in which the horses were, because it had made friends with the horses. It had lived with these horses for years. So we didn't notice it until later on, but the camel kept trying to run towards its friends. It wanted to be in its pack. So being aware of that helps. Towards the end of the shoot, we were able to then bring the horses within like 10 feet of the camel, and it settled down, it relaxed. And so little things like that, we want to notice the behavior of the animal to maximize our time, because the models are standing out there and it's freezing cold and there's wind blowing, it's snowing, it's brutal cold. We're up in the mountains at 11,000 feet, and we want to make sure that we can capture that incredible moment. And, you know, and if the animal's not cooperating or the models aren't cooperating, you're not going to have the best scene, you know, essentially, because it's going to, you know, disrupt the scenario. And by the way, guys, thank you very much for answering the polls here. I also want to, you know, I'm gonna ask you a few more polls because I want to know more about essentially what's your biggest challenge in your photographic business. And I also want you to talk about essentially, you know, what is it that you want in your photographic portfolio? Right now, if you are going to be photographing portraits, do you want images with animals? Do you want images with top models? You know, those kind of things. So I'm going to put a few more of these polls on here, and I'd love for you guys to answer it. You know, I want to find out kind of like what's your, do you want to build a stronger portfolio? And as a portfolio, and also, you know, if that portfolio, like the topic of today is about animals, I think it's important to include animals in your portfolio. I feel like I've always done this in my fashion portfolio and my lifestyle portfolio. And you know why? When you add animals, especially if it's something exotic, right? If it's something like a Bactrian camel or a reindeer, you know, that is a really unique thing that nobody else has in their book, you know, and honestly, nobody does. Like, I tried to find inspiration for this shoot, and I could not find for the life of me really high-end photography with reindeer. I just couldn't find it. You know, and I also couldn't really find anything with Bactrian camels. It's kind of rare. It's kind of exotic. So when we're thinking about this, you know, having content like, and for instance, here I'm gonna play another little, a few clips to see kind of the video side of what we were photographing. But essentially, when you're shooting animals like this, having something like this for your video or your photographic portfolio, this totally like takes the cake, right? This is so unique, having a scene like this, but then also making sure that our models are comfortable with it, because in a portfolio, expression is everything. And for me, I want to make sure that the expressions of the models are going to be just owning it. And that's why I flew in top models like Hannah here. You know, she's giving that energy, giving that vibe, giving that smile. She's working it. And, you know, and then also we notice that, yeah, the animals, you know, you have to be careful. How are they going to react to movement? And in the case of these reindeer, they're actually pretty easy to work with. But they kept kind of pulling back. If you notice, they kept kind of pulling back. So you know what? Instead of forcing the scene that we originally wanted with them, which we shot and it was amazing, we decided to do a scene where we're going to pull the reindeer. You know, that way it's not just some setup scene that we think is going to look good. It's something that actually the reindeer are responding to. They really like to kind of dig their hoofs into the snow and just not move. So it works out really well. And that way now we create this scene where it almost looks like it's a tug of war between the models and the reindeer. And so trying to kind of work with the animal to make sure that, okay, you know, I had never shot reindeer before. What are their instincts? What are they going to do? And they're interesting because they wouldn't like to back up. And I would say the same thing goes with the Bactrian camel that we shot last week. But what they would do is, if you have somebody walk behind them, and of course you'd never do this with a horse because the horse could kick, but when you have somebody walk behind the reindeer, they'll easily move forward. So every time that they kind of got out of place, we would just send somebody, or I would literally walk behind the reindeer and it would move along, and we would just kind of run, they'd walk around in circles basically to get them to cooperate. And then eventually the reindeer even sat down and kind of laid down on the snow. So that worked really well. But whenever you're creating scenes where you're going to have an animal in the sequence, I feel like it adds more life, because that's what animals represent. You know, there are certain features of photography that represent certain things. You know, for instance, water always represents life. That's why you always see it in like health and pharmaceutical ads. And you see it a lot in advertising. If you bring in animals, that represents life and energy, and it's a cool prop. It's something that's really interesting to include as a prop. So that's why I love to include them. Now, I think that when you incorporate animals into a scene like this, or like this right here, where she's walking it, to me, it adds way more of a dynamic sequence, even if you're photographing a portrait. Even if you're shooting a wedding, imagine incorporating something like this at a winter wedding. Or imagine photographing an epic fashion shoot with a Bactrian camel. What would that look like, right? I think that's really, really important. Now, I also want you guys to pay attention. I'm going to be adding another poll here. Part of production, just like this, when you're doing a big production, I mean, this is one of the most expensive. I have to say, of all the workshops we've directed in the last 12 years, we've directed about 131 of these elite workshops. This was probably the most expensive workshop I have ever directed in 12 years. Just the scale of the production, shooting with these epic mansions, these huge log cabin estates up in the mountains, working with the logistics of getting people in and out of the mountain pass and getting them into the location, which is a couple hours from Denver. That's very challenging. Shooting at a location a couple hours from an airport, that's very, very challenging. Working with top models that are this spectacular. In models, I even had to fly in, and then animals, coordinating and hiring the animals and the animal handlers to bring them by, all the little logistics, and of course the hair, the makeup, the wardrobe, and all those details. It becomes very, very challenging and expensive. So I guess what I'm trying to say is you want to shoot with animals, and you want to shoot world-class imagery that is going to make you more money. If you want to get to the opportunity where you buy a castle in France, I would highly recommend you invest in your photographic production. So get a budget together to hire the animal handlers. Get a budget together to hire top models. Even if you're a portrait or wedding photographer, it's important because high-end portrait and wedding, the clients are looking for photographers that have shot top models and celebrities. They're not looking for somebody that just shot Joe Blow down the street. So it's really important to invest in yourself. I can't stress that enough. And that's why, even for this workshop, it was massively expensive to put on, but you know what? It was worth it because the photography and the video that we created at this workshop for our elite photographers that attended. And by the way, 90% of the attendees at this workshop were prior attendees. So I've worked with them for years. They keep coming back. Most of them have attended 7, 8 workshops, some of them at 3 or 4 workshops. And I wanted to wow and dazzle them. I wanted to give them an experience that they will never forget. I wanted to give them an opportunity to photograph sequences that could never be created again. And we did. Because, in Denver, they don't have access to these models that are flying in from LA. Most of the time, they don't have access to all these animals. They don't have access to these locations. So the photographers that attended, which you're going to meet a couple of them, or at least one of them today that attended this workshop, I want to make sure that you guys do the same thing. But it also, it takes an investment. And I can't stress that enough. And I know that, the photographers here that don't invest in themselves, that means that you're going to be stagnant. You personally, as a photographer, are the absolute best investment for your photographic business. And if it takes producing a shoot with animals in big production, because that is big production, if it takes developing that portfolio, if it takes enrolling in a workshop, if it takes marketing yourself and investing in your marketing, it is literally the most important thing because we are trying to develop your brand. And that's why a lot of these photographers attended this experience, is because we're here to develop a brand. And I wanted to include animals in my brand because of the energy and the life. I think that's really important. So, we want to create sequences that are memorable and that have super, super, super high impact. So I want you guys to remember that. It's really, really important. And because of that, we want to create sequences that are almost like impossible to create on your own. And that's the beauty of what we're able to do here is that, to do this on your own, it's going to be about $100,000 a day. That's about what the cost of something, the scale of this production. We shot with our camera operator is a camera operator for Avatar 2, 3, and 4 with James Cameron. And he's the one that filmed all of this. We brought in a fashion stylist that styled for Vogue in New York and literally worked for Vogue in New York for a year. we worked with some of the best hair, makeup, wardrobe, and models that you could ever find in Colorado. And you know what? It speaks for itself, because this kind of content is what's going to land our photographers huge campaigns. Because look at this, photographing with animals, but in a sequential way where it shows energy, happiness, smiles, fun. It totally takes it to the next level. And that's why I think when you're photographing with animals, it's really important to make sure that we're going completely over the top, because I don't want just something, some small scale thing. I want to make sure that if we're going to shoot with animals, let's make it amazing, because if you're going to go through the trouble of it, might as well make it worthwhile for your production. Very, very, very important. And it doesn't have to be something exotic like a Bactrian camel or an alpaca, for instance. It can also be something simple, photographing with dogs, photographing with cats. I think that's totally fine. We actually incorporated little baby French bulldogs at one of our last Newport workshops, and it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing. But there's all different ways in which we can do it and incorporate it. And by the way, guys, this is another one. So about a month ago, we were shooting on location in Newport Beach. And this is a little bit of behind the scenes of what we were shooting in slow-mo with 8K cameras. And we were shooting with these alpacas. Now, these are actually some of the more difficult animals to work with. And what was difficult about them is, although the height and the size was excellent, because when I shoot with horses, the horses are really high and you have to deal with like angle and your lens could be distorted and stuff like that, and that can be a problem. When you're shooting with alpacas, the great thing about them is that they're kind of about the size of a person. So what that means is that they're very easy to photograph and frame in the scene. You see how similar they are, and they're fuzzy, they're really adorable, but they can also be little mean punks. These alpacas like to spit, they like to be mean, they can be kind of grumpy. So when working with alpacas, and we have our amazing production coordinator and animal handler, Priscilla Evans, who she actually was the production coordinator for this and made all this amazing stuff happen. And she's going to jump on today. She's going to talk to you guys a little bit more about how to make this happen. But trying to find animals that are easy to work with. So making sure that when you're seeking animals and you're going out and you're looking for alpaca owners, finding ones where they're like, okay, is this alpaca nice? Is it going to work well with models? Because sometimes these models are a little scared of it. And in this case, the models were terrified. Despite what it looks like here, I had to coach the models quite a bit, but they were terrified of these alpacas, especially the little girl running around. She was really scared of them. And you'll see in some of the images her expressions, which actually are really authentic and cool. But even Hannah, the model here in front, she was actually not loving them at all. The alpacas were going nuts on her. This is when we settled them down a little bit. But what was happening is a lot of times the alpacas would start to actually rear, and they would go back on their two legs, and their front legs would go up, and they'd kind of freak out, and they kind of be trying to get out of there. Partly because we have a big production, and we have a 8K red cinema camera here to the left, filmed by my camera operator that films on big movie sets. I have an 8K camera on a gimbal by my camera operator that shoots for Avatar that's filming this. So that gets a little scary. And then of course you have our photographers too. So that can be a little scary and daunting, and it can make the alpacas kind of freak out. But also making sure that the models can kind of tame them. So what I discovered when shooting with these animals is that these alpacas, they responded really well to a masculine energy. So when the female models held them, they would pull back and they would rear and they would kind of freak out. But when I held them, or when the male model held them, we held them just right under their chin, and they completely relaxed. They're almost like jello when we held them in that way. And then so every 30 seconds they would freak out, and then what we would do is we'd go in and we'd try to settle them down. So this is an image by Hans J. Paul, who's on this webinar right now, and epic scene. Absolutely love every aspect. We even had silky chickens, which were also kind of a handful. The silky chickens, which are these exotic chickens that have this beautiful white, kind of fluffy, feathery look. But the little boy was bouncing up and down with them so much that unfortunately, it was a kind of a lot of impact on the chickens. So we had to settle them down a little bit. So we have to be really careful, you know, with the animals to make sure that they stay healthy too. So, you know, the chickens were a little bit more fragile, whereas the alpacas, they're very, very sturdy and easier to work with. So we were able to work with them kind of throughout the day. And we photographed them actually at multiple locations, which is another thing that I want you guys to think about. If you're shooting with animals, we got to remember that it's a production and they're trailering these alpacas in, which is challenging because when you trailer an alpaca in, we also need to find a place to park the trailer. We need to find a place to bring in the animals so they're not walking through the house, because we're shooting as a mansion estate, we're shooting in the backyard. We needed to make sure that then, you know, we shot a sequence there in the backyard of this mansion, and then we put them back in the trailer and we transported them over to Tanaka Farms, which for those of you guys, I don't know if you, you know, want to shoot any sort of amazing stuff and with incorporating food, incorporating kind of a fresh feel or food and beverage with animals. We did that and it was epic. And this is what we did in Newport Beach. This was absolutely amazing. So this is just a little bit of footage as well of some of the stuff that we shot at Tanaka Farms, and we also incorporated animals there as well. We shot with horses at Tanaka, we shot with alpacas, we shot with sugarcane, with strawberry fields, with blackberries, and holding baskets, playing around in the fields, and it was amazing. And a farm is a much better spot to bring animals because obviously it's easier in, easier out, but you also run into other issues. So this is something that most people don't think about. But some of the issues, for instance, at Tanaka Farms, it's a strawberry farm. So they're not a farm that actually does animals. So for them, they didn't want us to bring animals there. So they were like, okay, you can come and photograph and you can film here and you can shoot with these top models at the Newport Beach Workshop, no problem. But bringing in horses, bringing in alpacas, no way, because of biosecurity issues. And you guys will run into this. So there's all kinds of permissions that we had to go through to convince them and convince the marketing director at the farm to allow us to go in there with animals. And that was a stretch. That was not easy. That was something that we had to really push. And Priscilla actually was able to make that happen. So that was pretty fantastic. But this is another sequence right at sunset, photographing with animals. And by the way, one of my favorite ways to shoot, and if you've seen almost all this content, shooting with animals, backlit. It's almost exclusively backlit from when we're shooting with the reindeer, shooting with the backstring camels, shooting with alpacas, shooting with silkies, and shooting with horses. We're always shooting backlit. And I love that. And also the people in general, because it's creating this beautiful halo, this beautiful feeling of nostalgia in the scene. And it makes it look amazing. It makes it look fresh. It makes it look nostalgic. It gives it this sense of feel that I love. I personally am obsessed with this kind of look. And that's why in my photography, I try to backlight everything, because I think that that's going to be the strongest way to really create something that's going to be impactful and that's going to last. Because you know what, guys? We need a 40 image cohesive body of work that's going to have, and I want a minimum of 20 to 30 of those images to be like these high impact, iconic images. And I mean images that will literally last a lifetime, okay? Literally, like, you know, for the next 15, 20 years of your portfolio, that these images will always be there. They will just wow and dazzle the audience. And what that means also is that at least for the next 5 years, they don't look out of date. They don't look dated. And that's another issue we run into, guys, having images that are dated. So one of the cool things is obviously when you're shooting with animals, they're timeless. They are not in and out of date. That's great. And then also, if you look at the wardrobe choices, I'm incorporating wardrobe that's also not like essentially like in these sequences, it's lifestyle. It's not something that's going to go out of date. All this lifestyle wardrobe is much more free people and much more like more of that timeless vintage look. And that way it kind of stays in style endlessly. And even the winter stuff, I mean, we're shooting to winter jackets and winter sweaters that don't really change that much as far as fashions. And I think that's also important if we want longevity in our portfolio. Very, very important, which is important. I want to make sure that your portfolio is going to last through your career. And of course, we want to update it all the time, but I want to get the most mileage out of it. And that's why at our workshops, I provide you guys with the opportunity to shoot something that's going to be timeless. This was one of the images shot by our photographers that we photographed right in front of this massive scale mansion in Silverthorne Breckenridge area up at 11,000 feet with mountains in the background, with reindeer, with top models, all backlit, and then using 8x8 foot bounces, which is another thing. When we're shooting with animals, I like to shoot with giant bounces because although reflectance can be a little scary, it's a little less scary than strobes going crazy. Some animals react poorly to that. And luckily, these animals were very okay with a giant bounce because they're used to reflective surfaces on snow and on other things and walls. So basically, a giant 8x8 foot bounce seemed more natural. And you put it up and you get them to be comfortable around it, and then eventually they're fine, right? And by the way, guys, I really like you to answer the poll in which I just posted here. I'm interested if you guys want to create world-class images and video. And by the way, at every one of these experiences I'm showing you, we're shooting 8K high-end video production with world-class camera operators, and creating content that you can use to market yourself. We have a whole series of epic productions coming up from Miami Beach in April, about a month from now, where we're shooting with top-tier Sports Illustrated swimsuit models, top-tier lifestyle models. We're shooting resort lifestyle and swim down in Miami, which there's one final spot left in that one. We have a Napa Valley workshop on wedding and portrait. We have our branding for photographers workshop in June that's going to be on developing. And that's just an inexpensive virtual workshop where it's just you tune in on Zoom, and the whole workshop is specifically just about branding yourself as a photographer, how to create that epic brand of who you are and what makes you different. If you're going to incorporate animals into it, you're incorporating top models into it, what does that look like? And that's an inexpensive one. It's only $12.95 for that workshop. And we've already done, I think this will be our fourth one that we've done. And what's awesome about this one is that the $12.95, you get a $300 discount if you enroll during this webinar, and the entire investment. So it's $12.95 minus 300, so it's only $9.95. That entire $1,000 is 100% a credit towards any 4-day workshop in 2021 or 2022, which if you're going to do one of these epic experiences anyways, it's an absolute no-brainer. It's something that will completely be an investment that will be worthwhile. I mean, our last one, we had, I think, 27 photographers signed up and came to our marketing for photographers workshop, and it was a smashing success. And I think out of those 27, I think 20 of them used that credit towards a 4-day workshop, and they are so grateful and excited. And some of them came to these workshops I just showed you. It was absolutely incredible, and I really hope that you guys get that opportunity as well. So after that, I also want to let you know that we've got some other experiences, some of which we're going to be incorporating animals as well into the productions. And we have an epic experience out in Las Vegas. This is going to be a mind-blowing workshop. This is in May 18th through 21st, and this is our entire concept inspiration. We're going to have huge flowy dresses, like 15, 20-foot long dresses. We're going to have scaffolding. We're going to be shooting on cracked earth in the desert, just like within 40 minutes outside of Vegas. And it's going to be absolutely epic. And this one, I think there's 2 spots left in this one. If you guys are interested, this is a mind-blowing workshop. And if you want to do the branding for photographers workshop and coincide that with this one, it would be a really worthwhile experience. But we just talked about all this lifestyle content that we shot, but we're going to be doing mind-bending fashion at the Las Vegas experience. So if you guys are interested in that, and please let me know in the poll which ones you guys are interested in, because we designed these experiences specifically for each and every one of you photographers. This is what we shot at our Elite Masterclass, which is right in line with what we're going to do. And then this is also the location, essentially the cracked earth desert right outside of Vegas. So this is going to be an epic experience. And we're going to be bringing in top supermodels and shooting an unbelievable production. If you guys are really interested, we probably are going to incorporate animals of some kind at Las Vegas as well, and definitely in Chicago. The Chicago experience, every single year we incorporate animals. This last year we shot a vintage fashion Mad Men story with horses and it was unbelievable. It was such an incredible shoot, incredible production with animals and vintage cars. We shot with a 1960s Corvette convertible. We shot with these top models, and it was absolutely unbelievable. It's a 4-day experience. 3 of the days are fashion. 1 of the days is on lifestyle. And I know many of you guys have attended this one. I know David Gesbrecht has. We have the amazing Hans J. Paul. Many of you guys have attended this experience, and it was one that was to remember. So we have an epic lifestyle side of this as well. So if you guys are interested in shooting animals, the one in Chicago will be right down your alley. And if you want to incorporate animals into Vegas, we can also make that happen. So I love to do that, just because when we're shooting with animals, it's so much more dynamic and interesting, and it really takes it to that next level. So, and I know many of you guys are on here, and I'm going to bring on some of our photographers that are past attendees to come and talk about their experiences with shooting with animals and what that was like. And I'm really excited to kind of, see what they have to say about all of these experiences. So I would love to bring on the great Jane Ritchie. I know you are a panelist on here. You're listed. If you can turn on your video and audio. And the great Jane Ritchie just attended our Newport experience, the one that we were just talking about, and it was amazing. We, she shot with all these amazing. I believe she got the chance to shoot with the alpacas and create this just unbelievable content. So, Jane, I'd love for you to jump on, and here I'm going to ask you to start video, and I'd love for you to tell us about your experience, about what that was like in Newport Beach, and tell us a little bit about the type of photography you do and how it was, what the experience was like photographing animals with us at the workshop.
It was amazing. I first of all, I want to say that I have images. I've been shooting for over 20 years, and I have images that I have never had before. And I've been a photographer in the Bay Area, San Francisco, and I've done a lot of fashion. I've done corporate. I've done all kinds of work. And right now, my orientation is toward healthcare, wellness, and lifestyle. And I have maybe 40 images, all different, from this shoot. And working with the animals was wonderful. I love animals. I love all kinds of animals, and these alpacas were just amazing. They're like otherworldly, and I am thrilled with the pictures I got with them. Kevin was talking about how they reared up, and it was hilarious. I actually didn't catch that, but I saw it happening, and it was just amazing. I got really great pictures, both on location. I love the sugarcane field. I also love the house that we shot at, and the handlers of the alpacas made it a lot easier for us. And one thing I've got to say that really concerns me is treating the animals really well, and they were beautifully treated. All of the animals were just everyone cared for them and made sure that they were happy, and that just warmed my heart to see that. The little boy who had the long hair, those chickens were his chickens, so he knew how to handle them, and that was really cool. I got a real great shot of him with his it's called a silky chicken, and it was a close-up. Really cute. I want to say also that I've been following Kevin for 2 years, and I finally bit the bullet and signed up for his course. And I got much, much more out of it than I'd ever expected. I was treated so well. I felt so welcome, a part of the team there. It was just a beautiful experience. I felt high on happiness when I drove home from Newport Beach. And I'm going to sign up for a couple of more courses right away. Actually, I've got a deposit in on Chicago. And if I can handle it, I might go to Miami as well, if there's still a space for me. But this is the best thing I've ever done for myself. I really, really appreciate Kevin, and Kevin is the whole package. I went to school at the Academy of Art. I even taught there, but I never learned how to market myself properly. The marketing workshop that I invested in also was amazing. I got so much information out of it. And I'm right now in the process of putting these new images into my 2 websites. I'm on at Edge, and I have my own website. And as soon as I get those in, which should be in the next 2 days, I'm going to be on a marketing frenzy, and I'm going forward with this. I just cannot say enough about this. And the cost is probably a lot lower than what it's worth. To me, it's Kevin does so much. He has everything done so well. Everything is perfect. The makeup and hair were perfect. I've worked with all kinds of makeup and hair people, and this is the best I've seen. The styling was great. Priscilla was fabulous, putting everything together. And oh, one thing I loved at the strawberry farm was the basket full of strawberries. And the Gil, the most fantastic male model, was holding the strawberries with the strawberry field behind. And I have a fabulous picture that will be really great for my wellness orientation. So anything else you want me to say, Kevin?
No, I love it. And thank you for all your generous, kind words. I appreciate that a lot. And Jane, and I do put my heart and soul into this. I mean, you photographers, you guys are my everything. And I give. And, and even a workshop like we just did, which the Colorado one last week, the scale and cost of the production was so insane that even when we lose money on a production, it's worth it for us to make sure that you walk away with the greatest images and video that you guys have ever experienced, because that's the only thing that matters. And in that experience in Miami Beach, there is only one spot left. It is literally everyone's favorite workshop. I've been doing it for 12 years. The Miami one is everyone's favorite. It's so insane that and it's so different than everything else we do that you'll you'll appreciate it. I'm excited myself, and the weather's going to be incredible down there in Miami this time of year in April, which will be absolutely incredible. We timed them very, very specifically. So Jane, was there a specific scene that you mentioned, the strawberries, you mentioned the alpacas? Was there a certain scene that you feel like is the most impact for your portfolio?
Yes, you showed a video of Gil and Hannah running through the strawberries, and I have an incredible shot of that, and I think it should be on the cover of my portfolio. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention is that I felt so comfortable with everybody there. I just felt like part of a family. It was really wonderful. It was, all of the photographers were great, and all of the crew, the assistants, the camera people, and of course you were wonderful and gave all kinds of great advice while we were shooting. I really benefited from all that.
Oh, well, thank you. And I think so this sequence right here was the one you're referring to, right?
That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what was interesting, Jane, is that this was the very first scene we shot there, and it was simple. And it was just like, I just walked in and I'm like, that's the scene. That's the moment. Let's create this moment. And then we shot it from 3 different angles to piece it together for an epic video. This is just all the raw content, by the way. This is unedited, straight out of camera, which, by the way, you are going to get all of this in a hard drive so that you have every single sequence photographed and filmed by 8K cinema cameras that are going to be absolutely incredible. So it's really exciting because I really want this for your branding. to have a video on your homepage. So when your homepage, you go to your homepage, it's a video streaming. And I know some of our photographers like Hans did this, and it looks really strong. I really like the way he did it. And I think that that would look really good with you as well. Like, one of these sequences. And he even mixes it up every so often. He changes it so it's a new sequence. But I find that really interesting, and I would love to do that as well. And I'm going to work with you intensely to make sure that your brand is going to be where it needs to be. That's really, really important to me, that we get that absolute success out of that, and that the best Jane Ritchie brand that we can come up with. Super important. So thank you, Jane. I appreciate it. And I'm excited because, you're a really talented photographer. I got the opportunity to work with you. I was super impressed at your work already. But the difference is that your work prior to the workshop was not with supermodels and top models. And the work at the workshop was with models that have been in Dolce & Gabbana, models that have been, world-class advertising models, and world-class production with animals and stuff. And that kind of like took the Jane Ritchie brand way up here to a place where you're on another planet, another echelon. And that's what gets me really excited. And because you already had the skills, you just need access to the production. And that's essentially what we provide.
I'm so excited. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I can't wait to work with you throughout the year. We have so many incredible things planned, Jane. And by the way, if you guys, Jane had the opportunity to do this too with setting up a consult with a photographic consultant. I think, Jane, you've been speaking to Dan, and Dan has been giving you a lot of guidance and coaching. We have the opportunity now. I'm here in France, but our photographic consultants are also on location and available for you guys to talk to and to get guidance from, to review your portfolios. In the chat, I listed here a link to click and set up a free photographic portfolio review. It can also be a review about your branding and essentially what you want to achieve in your photography in 2021 and 2022. Jane, can you talk a little bit about your experience with Dan and how maybe that has helped guide you and stuff like that, and how doing something like that is a benefit?
Yeah, Dan has been amazing. He has been so giving, and he's helped me choose the photos to use. Well, first of all, you had specified to choose 40 photographs of the best photographs of every day. And I did that. And he went through meticulously and spent a lot of time with me, much more time than I had ever thought. And he gave his expertise. And I also loved your input. But Dan has been really there for me throughout the whole process and given me a lot of guidance. He is there for me doing things like helping me schedule where I'm going to stay for the workshop, all the logistics, and he's just a really kind person and lovely to work with and full of great information. And every time I talk with him, I feel so enthusiastic about going forward with you all. And I love being part of this team.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm really grateful because we have an amazing team, from Priscilla Evans to Daniel Rothschild to Kara Katzen. We have unbelievable people, and they're people that I've hand selected and worked with, and they know me, inside and out, and they come to all the workshops. Dan has been to the last 7 out of 8 workshops. Dan knows every aspect of what goes into it, and he's worked with our photographers intensely. Priscilla's been to the last 3 workshops in a row, or 4 workshops in a row, and Priscilla has produced and production coordinated these unbelievable experiences with animals. So thank you so much, Jane. I'd love for Priscilla to jump on, and Priscilla is also broadcasting live from the castle. She's actually inside one of the dining rooms of the castle. It's a 49-room castle. Priscilla, I would love for you to talk a little bit about animals, because I know that this is your expertise. I mean, not only do you have a degree in animal science, and you're also an expert in production coordinating, but you were able to put together just unbelievable productions where we incorporated animals I want to start with because I know we've been talking a lot about Colorado and stuff like that, but I really wanted to showcase a little bit of what we did at the Elite Masterclass and how we're able to create some of these productions. So something like, and to give you guys a point of reference, this is what was shot at the Elite Masterclass by our photographers with horses, with supermodels at a 30,000 square foot water studio. Priscilla, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what the secret sauce is to working with animals and essentially how that can benefit you in your portfolio?
Absolutely. So yeah, hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us and watching. I was about this close to actually becoming a vet, and my degree is actually in animal and veterinary bioscience at the University of Sydney. So I'm from Australia, and I grew up, I bred chickens and I showed them. I had cats, we bred those too at one point. We had ducks and ducklings. We had ducklings under chickens. It was all pretty crazy with animals at my house. Budgerigars, I had horses. I grew up riding horses. My mum's family bred horses. They bred Angus cattle. They had sheep. So I have never worked though with a Bactrian camel before 2 weeks ago. I'd never worked with reindeer. But if you can lead a horse, or in fact, if you can walk a dog, then you can actually lead a reindeer, it turns out. So yeah, it's been amazing. I love being able to incorporate animals into these productions. And I think that it's an incredible, eye-catching, impactful, moment that we're creating across all of our photographers and their portfolios. I think when anyone, turns a page and they see some of the content we shot from last week, it really does make them stop and think, which is amazing. So yeah, I mean, working with animals is super dynamic, and it's, you never know exactly what's going to happen. You always want to have that camera ready because, as Jane, wonderful Jane said, she, just missed the moment, I think, that the alpacas were rearing. I didn't even know alpacas could rear because I've never paraded one in a show ring before. And obviously the ones you see in the show ring are, they're educated to walk on with a halter and with a head collar. So they don't do that. So we were actually working with some that were in training. So that was new and unexpected, but yeah, it's incredible. You never know what's going to happen as far as producing and coordinating them. What you see in front of you is about, a quarter of what's been done as far as coordination. Normally, if we've got alpacas there, I've actually got 3 alpaca breeders on standby or, as a backup the day before. So a bit hard to find a backup for the Bactrian camel and for the reindeer. Turns out there are not many reindeer owners in Colorado. So that one was a surprise element. But yeah, having backups is always important. And especially, actually, we learned with the chickens too, there's only so long they're kind of happy and comfortable being held. And it's nice to kind of swap them out as well. So we actually had, I don't know, there might have been eight silky chickens there, and we were kind of rotating through them all in the scenes. And that's a great way to keep the animals nice and relaxed and calm and happy as well.
Excellent. So, yeah, and we're talking a little bit about all these different shoots, and you produced the animals for the Newport Beach workshop, the one that we're looking at right now. And Priscilla, you also worked on the Elite Masterclass, which was probably one of the most over the top with animals, because you also had to find animals that can work on water and that can work with massa. And also we had parachutes on location. So we were shooting with parachutes, horses racing across the water, and shooting in a sequence like this. This was at our Elite Masterclass, which we're going to have this again in October. Talk a little bit about this production and some of the challenges that we ran into and how we dealt with it and how we got such great content out of this.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this one, it's pretty intimidating to a horse owner to say to them, hey, we'd love to work with your horses. They're gorgeous, but they're going to have to stand still and be really calm while we've got parachutes that are inflated with fans going, while we've got vehicles around and there, there's generators and there's noise. So, horses are pretty much, they're going to react to 2 things, movement and noise. So basically we've just ticked both those boxes. We've got lots of people on set. It's all those things that are a little bit daunting to a horse owner. And especially when, perhaps the reason we're trying to find a particular horse is because of the look. And therefore you've got to balance in, temperament as well. So finding the right people in the horse world, particularly, you look at what's photographically impressive, and a lot of the time it's, Arabian horses. They've got these incredible angles to their face with that dishy kind of bone structure. And yet those horses generally, especially if they're not a ridden Arabian, if they're just like a harness or a halter bred, so they're literally, they only have them running around in the show ring, they're, for those handlers and the people that work with horses like that, they're literally bred and trained to be a little bit on the wild side. They want them to stand up tall and to react so that they look really impressive in the show ring. So as far as utilizing those in a photo shoot like this, it wouldn't have been suitable. So for us, the priority, and for me, was to find, trainers and owners that are really in tune with breeding for really quiet, calm, even-tempered horses. And that means finding horses that have already had challenges thrown at them, at home when they're being trained. So, horse trainers should be, and if the horse has been well trained, they should be desensitized to a lot of the elements that do spook them, like movement and like noise. So for me, it was, finding out from this owner. Obviously in the training, they're not going to, hardly any horse out there would have had a parachute inflated as a part of their training. But have they had a lot of desensitization to movement and to, tarps and things flapping and moving and making noise? And if they have, well, great, they're probably going to be more suitable. So we found a couple of owners, and I found a couple of owners, and I had a few on standby. And also having, another animal that's been experienced, maybe an older animal on set, to help kind of calm down the younger ones that are perhaps the most, flashy looking, and the ones that are going to look great on camera. So we used all those strategies, and I've seen some of the comments today in the chat, and giving animals breaks, or, incentivizing them with food or whatever. That's fantastic. But sometimes the set and the time constraints, sometimes you don't necessarily have that. So starting off with, the best owner, the most relaxed, calm horse that you can do anything with, and finding great people, and then incentivizing them, to work with us again, giving them some great content out of that. Horse owners love to have great images, of their horses and themselves back that they can use to show off to their friends and have. So doing all of that for them is really appreciated.
Also, winning awards. I mean, I think that this is the most impressive thing, is that look at what, this is a direct ROI here. Somebody asked a question, Richard Freeman, about this. We had photographers that attended this elite masterclass, like Michael Weilet. We had Evan Siegel get published. We got, we had Robert Ashby. We had Hans J. Paul. We had, I know at least 4 of our photographers, and if you can see here, the really wild ones here, they won One Island Awards. Some of them won the silver, like Michael Weilet. Some of them won the bronze. Some of them won the finalist. And then last year we had Adam Friedman won #1 fashion photographer of the year. So really impressive. And look at, some of the images, like this finalist one right here, with the horse. This is with the horse. And then actually the one that won bronze, which is even a higher level than finalist, was actually the one with yours truly, Priscilla Evans. And I showed that one a little bit ago. But but essentially creating content that it wins awards will make you more money. It will get you more projects. It will get you more opportunities. It will get you to the point where, people want award-winning photographers, whether you're consumer photographers, whether you're commercial photographers. And, images like this, which Priscilla produced the shoot, coordinated the horses, rode the horses and modeled. And look, Robert Ashby won he won bronze award in the One Island Awards for 2020. Very impressive. And also, another photographer asked about ROI. Richard Freeman, I want to answer this. I think that it's important to remember that the ROI on a shoot, it's all about how much is this portfolio, how much is this going to add to our portfolio? And an image that's in an award-winning publication is going to add to the portfolio. It's going to add to our gravitas and our brand, right? And in our brand, if we have something that's going to add to it and add more value, it's going to convince clients to book us and pay us what we deserve as photographers. And I've had photographers come in like Charles Randolph Warren start shooting. He was a portrait photographer, and after attending our workshops is now shooting for Dolce & Gabbana. He's shooting for Lee Jeans. He's shooting for Vogue, Vanity Fair, Harper's Bazaar. And that's after just 2 or 3 workshops. And we have photographers that are making massively more. In fact, the photographer, Nick Seth Smith, that attended our workshop, the one that we are just referring to, he attended this workshop where Priscilla helped produce. And what's awesome about that is Nick created unbelievable content that not only was Nick's imagery amazing and it added to the value of his brand, but his imagery also gave him the opportunity to book an $18,000 shoot for a client, an $18,000 wedding from this image. This is the front of our website now. Very proud of him. Absolutely epic. So yeah, the ROI is there on a whole nother level. We have photographers that invest in the workshops, and some of them, and it depends on how much time investment you want to put into it. But we have photographers that go on to make 10, 20, 30 times more out of what they gain from the workshop from what they invested. But it's all based upon you and what you're going to do and what you're going to achieve. So anyway, so thank you, Priscilla. I really appreciate it. And also we all are indebted to you because the level and scale and quality of production that we've created over the last 6 to 8 months, a lot of it's indebted to you and some of the amazingness that you bring to the table. It really adds to the quality and the production level to make these experiences mind-blowing for our photographers. And that's why, and guys, by the way, I put in the link here an opportunity that you guys can set up a call with Priscilla. You can schedule a free photographic consult with her. If you look on the chat, I'm putting this in the chat, and I want you guys to go ahead and even if you've done one in the past, that's okay. But if you guys are legitimately interested in taking your photography to the next level, or if you have any questions specifically about our epic experiences, our workshops, of what we have to do, I want you guys to set up a call and talk with Priscilla, talk with Daniel Rothschild, or talk with Kara Katzen about those experiences. I think that'd be amazing. I also love to bring on another one of our amazing photographers that has attended. So we have some amazing panelists here that I'd love. David Gesbrecht. Now you just attended the Colorado experience, and I'd love for you, David, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your experience photographing with the reindeer, with the Bactrian camel, what that was like, and maybe how, because you attended all 4 days and you got the most of this and it was amazing. Tell us a little bit about that experience and how it's kind of benefited you and your portfolio.
Bonjour, Kevin. It's good to see you. Hello, everybody. Yeah, we got back from the Colorado trip, just like a week ago. And yeah, managed to actually post a couple things, and the content was just amazing. I work in the film industry, and we have a saying, do not work with children or animals. And those adages are true, but if you do, I think there's a bonus to the content that you can get. Like, there's something with the shots of the reindeer that no one else will have, or the camel, or even the horses that we've shot. Those images stand out and they look amazing. So I think, yeah, there's always challenges, but the biggest thing is to do, what everyone else said before about working with animals that you've just heard, and also just to, embrace and just get a feel for the animal. And when you find their sweet spot and something that works for them, like with the camel, we figured out that the camel liked to hang with its horse buddies. So every time it was taken off, it was always going to the horses. And we didn't realize this until, a bit into the shoot. But once we realized that, and he calmed right down, and the images we got after that were amazing. So I think it's, you just have to be, open to what's happening in the environment, and, and definitely have a feel for the animal. And if, maybe change what you're shooting to suit the content. Like if the camel wants to do this, how does that work? And if he's in a good spot, what kind of image can you make around that? Because there's, between you and a camel, who's going to win? I think it's going to be the camel.
Yeah, and
But
this is a big one, wasn't he? He was a bulldozer. He would just bulldoze through us,
it's
right?
massive. He wants to go. You're not going to stop him.
Yeah, yeah. But the sequences and David, it was really cool because I remember you got to coach that camel into some sequences that you photographed and filmed, and the content was amazing because you were able to shoot with multiple frames a second. I would love you to talk a little bit about that. You know, you and I shoot in a similar way where we shoot with multiple frames a second, and we're able to capture a lot of shots in a row to get just the right moment. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think especially when it comes to doing lifestyle, it's all about, you set up a shot, but it's also about the moment and the action that's happening within that. So you set up set up the story, have the models entertain and then just go for an action. And then, yeah, you shoot, 3, 5 frames per second just to, get that one magic moment. It's a lot of editing afterwards, but sometimes it's just that brief second, when the snow's falling or the animals just turning this one way, you just get those special shots. So I think it's worth it to in those kind of parameters to shoot that to kind of capture that kind of magic. So you have the feeling, and I think the feeling that you get from especially doing a lifestyle shoot is just or more important probably it's about equal to the layout and the dynamics. So if you can get that feeling, because people look at the photograph and go, okay, that I love that feeling. That's the feeling I want to use for my brand or, to sell my thing. So, I think lifestyle is all about feeling shots.
Absolutely. And you're able to capture a lot of moments with that, with the right models and with the animals. And, you're shooting at how many frames a second, David?
I think my D5 does at least 5 frames per second when I'm fully pressed.
Okay. So we're just, firing away and creating, a lot of great shots. And I think that that's important, shooting multiple frames a second to really capture that moment, especially with animals. Now, you've done a series of workshops with me. You've done which ones now?
We started with the Chicago workshop. If you don't count the online workshops, Chicago, and then we did New York, and I was lucky enough to get into Denver, and I'm going to be in Miami next month, right?
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. So, and you've created some great stuff, and you've shot a couple times now with animals with me, and I feel like David, it's really going to add a lot of value to your brand having that production because it kind of like leads to that production quality. And for someone like you who you've shot for House of Cards for Netflix, you've shot major covers of TV shows and stuff like that. It's all about that gravitas and that scale of production. And that's what I love to see in your book, because now your portfolio has that scale and it really adds to that quality of big production for your brand.
Oh yeah, I think it definitely, it adds, total bling, and you get that, and the experience of actually working with animals. If someone was to call, you have that, you know how to work with them, because the first time you get a big animal on set, it's not quite as easy. So to get a feel for that and have that as an experience of what you have in your portfolio, and someone comes to you and say, hey, and we want to do this, and we want to work with these things, what to do. So that's I think that's a added bonus besides the amazing content.
Excellent, excellent. So you feel like the photography workshops have really added to your body of work and your impactful portfolio?
Oh, it's definitely up the level. The downside is that I can no longer just go, okay, well, let's just do a shoot. It has to be a shoot that has a certain level. I can't you can't backtrack once you've stepped across that line. So everyone be warned, once you start creating amazing stuff, you don't want to be creating mediocre anymore. So
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that though, David, because once you raise the bar, you have to make sure that everything going forward has to be at that scale, right?
Yeah.
And that's why for me, I don't pick up my camera unless it's a massive scale production, unless it's, shooting at a castle with supermodels from Paris, or photographing with Bactrian camels in the mountains, or photographing, Sports Illustrated swimsuit models and Victoria's Secret models in Miami Beach, shooting just an unbelievable production. To me, it's not worth it unless it's going to be over the top and it's going to add value to my portfolio, or get published in a magazine or make me money,
Yeah, it has to be worth doing now. Yeah.
And David, going forward, what are your goals in photography? Is it to land more major advertising campaigns, editorials? What are your goals going forward?
Definitely want to get more advertising campaigns. I work in the entertainment industry, so I still want to parlay that into bigger jobs. Doing their marketing and their advertising. And I like working with celebrities. I've got a fair bit of experience with that. And yeah, just to get bigger clients, do less work, get more money. That's I think the key right there.
Love it. Absolutely love it. I absolutely love it. Well, thank you. I can't wait to see you, David. This is going to be, an absolutely incredible experience next month in Miami Beach. And I'm so glad you're going to be a part of it because we go all out in Miami and it is going to be incredible. So,
Nice. I can't wait. Going from snow to sand. So I'm in.
exactly. Nice and warm and tropical, and it'll be epic. It's a great time of year. So thanks so much, David. I appreciate it. And you've been an absolute pleasure to work with. And this is why, guys, you can see our photographers that attend these experiences are amazing human beings. We're very highly selective about our photographers that we allow in. And because of that, it's a great experience for everybody. And that way, the photographers that do come are like, oh my gosh, like we have a family, like Jane mentioned. It really does feel like a family. I'd love to bring on one more photographer on here. If I know Evan, you're on. I put you on as a panelist. I know you've come on a couple of times. I always love to hear from you because you're just such a wonderful photographer, wonderful person, Evan Siegel. If you wouldn't mind, I'd love for you to say a few words about shooting with animals because you had an opportunity to do that in Newport Beach, and you got to photograph with the alpacas, you got to photograph with the silkies, you got to photograph with the with the horses, and I'd love to hear from you if you don't mind.
Sure, Kevin, just you need to allow me to start my video and I can do it.
Sure. I will just ask you to start now. Hopefully that works.
I'm honored to be on again. I'm honored to do it. And I'm always honored to be with you and Priscilla and your wonderful assistants and associates for these workshops. I've got 2 more coming this year, the Las Vegas and the New York fashion workshop at least. So I'm very excited about those. In terms of shooting with the animals, I like to think of the animals as adding maybe a 4th dimension. If the third dimension is time, the 4th dimension is animals and living creatures other than human beings. And I found that my mind went into another dimension in doing that. I've done group shooting before. I've shot more than one person at a time, done, as you know, fashion portraiture, weddings at one time. Lifestyle is completely new to me. And I took to it like a duck in water, in my opinion, anyway. In the master class last day or so, and the Newport Beach intensive for lifestyle. And for me, the animals really truly added a new dimension of challenge, of interest, of excitement, and the interaction of the models and the animals was truly mind-blowing for me. So it was a thoroughly enjoyable experience and a challenge. I mean, you reach a certain point in your shooting where you want to be challenged, you like to be challenged, and sometimes it's a little daunting, but it's very, very exciting. And so I enjoyed it thoroughly. The alpacas, the horses, the silkies, in the different settings were, it seemed like we shot for 8 days instead of 4. And that was very good. That was an exciting experience for me.
Yeah, what Evan's referring to is we don't normally do this, but we actually moved locations and did that twice throughout the workshop. So it actually added whole nother feel in addition to these estates. We actually shot at these amazing Tanaka farms, etc. So it was really interesting. So I mean, on the same day from shooting that, what we just showed you, we went from there to like, an hour later. We're here at Tanaka Farms shooting this, and it's like, wow, like talk about a differential. But you know what, Evan, you know me, I don't mess around. We'll never go, we only go big, we always go over the top. And and that's why we've always been the Ferrari of photographic workshop experiences. There's nothing better than the photography workshop series, and there never will be. We've designed something that's so over the top, and it gives you content that's marketable, that's sellable, that'll give you an opportunity to make more money and be a more sought after photographer and a better brand and better confidence. Now, Evan, you personally, I got an opportunity to look through your pictures, and Honestly, I was so wowed and dazzled. I thought you were one of the strongest photographers at the Newport Beach workshop. I thought your stuff was absolutely mind blowing. So what I love to see is I love to see photographers like Evan that have the skills, that have the abilities, and then they need is the production in front of them. And that's what we provide. And that's why you're such a perfect fit, Evan, is because you're already so talented that if you have the right production and you have these type of top models and stylists in production, and Jane had mentioned before about the stylist, we brought in the creative director from L'Oreal on hair. We brought in one of the makeup artists that does all the Eats campaigns with Cress Applebaum. She's like one of the most famous makeup artists in Los Angeles. We had unbelievable styling, incredible models, and then locations were out of this world. So Evan, tell me a little bit just on animals, because that's kind of the purpose of this webinar. How do you think that having animals in your portfolio kind of sets you apart from other photographers?
Well, I think again, I'm used to shoot. I mean, I've done a lot of wildlife shooting on location all over the world, and that can be very exciting and very special to bring back those kinds of images of natural beings in their natural settings, but somehow melding it with shooting models, and particularly top-notch models who understand how to react and act and handle animals they've never seen before, or maybe they're a little scared of. That whole dynamic, multi-dimensional approach to photography creates a challenge and also an excitement. I mean, I find myself excited to have animals in the production, partially because of the uncertainty of what they're going to do when they're interacting with you as the photographer, and mostly the models who are so close to them when you're shooting. And of course, in lifestyle, when you tend to be very, very close to the action anyway, it's really like being in the middle of an amazing, almost like being in the middle of a circus, without the negatives that circuses now connote. I mean, because the animals are treated very well in your productions. The models are very flexible and understanding of what they need to do. And the synchrony of it all makes it a very adrenaline producing experience. And the animals add a dimension for me in my photography, partially because that combination of people and animals is quite new for me. I've done a little bit of it in the past, but it was more of a fashion type of experience, a very rare one, than the lifestyle. The dynamism and that multi-dimensional approach I discussed earlier all synchronize and synthesize in an experience that's very hard to explain. I've done work, I've shot with really good photographers in my training, in my time, but there's something about the additional dimensions of these workshops and the addition of the animals with the top-notch models, with the top-notch production, and the top-notch people like you and the people that you bring into these workshops, as well as the other photographers. It's like, it's not additive, it's synergistic, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. There is a special something. And that's honestly like what most photographers have told me over the years, is that the reason that they attend these experiences, a lot of it has to do with the art direction. And that's kind of the special sauce. Whereas a lot of photographers, yeah, maybe they're great at headshots, or they're great shooting, beautiful, models for swim, or they're used to just shooting fashion. But what we bring to the table is world-class high-end art direction. And I've noticed a huge difference in your photography since that, Evan.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I appreciate it. I'm very honored, really.
Absolutely. Well, I love working with you, and the quality of your photography already mixed with the really over the top art direction of what we have bring to, and the massive scale production. To me, it's your work's looking like it's, the cover of French Vogue, and that's what makes it special. And shooting, national advertising campaigns for the lifestyle stuff. So it's pretty special. Well, thank you so much, Evan. I really appreciate your thoughts on that. And I'd love to answer just a couple of your guys' questions here. I've got David Davis had asked a few questions, and David, I want to answer these as well. you had asked earlier, I think, about some, I think you were kind of tentative about ROI and things like that, and hopefully I answered your question about that. But you also asked something about natural lighting versus strobe lighting. I think that that's a great question. At all of our workshops, we have all the equipment at your disposal. Now in this production lifestyle, the one that you're watching this video right here, this is all shot with the giant 8x8 foot silver bounce. Generally, when we're shooting lifestyle, I almost exclusively shoot with large silver bounces and scrims. Especially if we're in a place like Miami Beach next month, we're going to be shooting with scrims all day. We're going to be shooting in, it'll be probably 85 degrees out and hot and beautiful in the sun, and we'll have giant scrims overhead. I like a 1 1/4 stop scrim above, and that way it creates a beautiful light on the face by scrimming it, not being too harsh. And then we bring in a giant 8x8 silver bounce to bounce light back in rather than strobing. Now, the benefits of this are that it's less expensive, because strobes are expensive. And also you can film it because it's continuous lighting. Like you can see this, we're filming with continuous lighting on this model with our horse. And it's great for shooting with animals, because when you're shooting with animals and you're strobing, animals get a little freaked out sometimes by the strobes. And also it's not continuous. So I think it's important to have continuous light throughout, and having beautiful light on your models and your horses and your animals and things like that. And guys, by the way, I only have a few questions put in the Q&A, but if you guys have any burning questions, please ask them in the Q&A if you can. Otherwise, they can get kind of lost in the chat. That would be really, really helpful. So Richard Freeman said, use 3-point lighting in a portrait session. Do you use as far as AC lighting, a large light box as your main light? So Richard, great question. When I'm shooting with with lighting for, say, a portrait or a fashion, and I am going to use strobes, I often am going to be using a beauty dish if it's going to be, especially if you're shooting a model. I love beauty dishes. Beauty dishes are going to be my key light. Generally, they're going to be like right about a 45-degree angle. And then I'm going to have oftentimes like a rim light coming in from the other side as an opposite reciprocal. So if I say I have a light here, I would have another light back here as a rim light on the back of the head, and then a key light on my face. Now we're going to get into this at the fashion workshop in Las Vegas in May. And we're going to be doing some really high-end fashion lighting out in the desert on cracked earth. And that might be a really good experience for you. Most of our workshops are on lifestyle, such as Miami Beach, as well as Newport, as well as what we did in Denver. They're going to be exclusively high-end scrims and bounces. The reason for this is also because it looks very natural and real. And as soon as you bust out strobes, you kind of lose that realness. And I like authenticity. I like to see authentic lighting, authentic action sequences in my photographic stories. And also, since I'm filming everything, because all photographers need to be able to film now, it's really helpful to have continuous lighting. And the best way to have continuous lighting is using giant scrims and bounces that are continuous. So that would be my strong suggestion there. All right, so I'd love to bring on the great Daniel Rothschild. He has been waiting patiently here, but Dan had the opportunity to come to the last 7 out of 8 workshops. He is one of my absolutely favorite people I've ever worked with in my career. And Dan has coached literally hundreds of our photographers. In fact, he's worked with Jane, and he's worked with a lot of the photographers that are on right now. So Dan, I'd love to hear from you, because you got to experience all of these photo shoots from Chicago, where we worked with horses. Dan, we worked with, you came to the Elite Masterclass, where we shot with horses racing across the water. You came to the Newport Beach workshop twice, where we shot with animals from little French bulldog puppies to Pomeranians, to working with the most recent one with alpacas and silkies and horses. And then, of course, you just got back from Colorado, and you were in the winter wonderland shooting with the Bactrian camels. And tell me a little bit about your experience with the animals, coming from your perspective. I'd love to hear all about it and how you feel like it's helped your photographers.
Well, first of all, thank you, Kevin. I feel like I'm Dr. Doolittle. It's I normally, I normally address the business and the marketing and all that, and helping the photographers that way. But I'll tell you what, I'm going to I want to address the, like you said, but the portfolio aspect of the for the photographers is the experience that I experienced at the workshops, and I'll emphasize it with my first workshop. I had heard all about it. I had done all my research. I'd heard all the words, all, you know, and all the reviews. And I went to the workshop. There are not words to explain the realness and the incredibleness of the workshops. You've heard it from others as well, but it's really, it's so real. So at the last two workshops in Newport Beach, the warm weather, the farms, the multi-million-dollar homes, the animals, and then the winter wonderland up at 11,000 feet, you know, air is thin, snow is deep, mountains, frozen lakes. We're working with these animals. It was incredible. First of all, I had never in person seen a reindeer. It was really incredible. And actually, what wasn't mentioned is there's a type of danger of, you know, possible, but we protect. You know, we're working with the models, making sure that the reindeer doesn't do a fast turn with the antler, and so they're always protected. We're always, you know, making sure they're safe. But to see these animals and then to watch the whole experience with the models, the art direction you mentioned earlier, it's so much a part of it, because to make all this happen, it looks beautiful. It is not easy. It's a lot of work. And the camel, I have never been that close to a 1,000-pound double hump camel. And it was so beautiful. The whole experience was so beautiful. And here's the other thing, besides working there and being a part of it, I'm watching the photographers experience this, and the looks on their faces and their excitement and their, oh my gosh, looks. And as they're taking photos that they've never in their life been able to or have done, to create the greatest photos ever in their whole lifetime to add to their portfolio. But also on top of it, I've heard many photographers, I always emphasize, Hans always talks about how he loves the experience. Obviously the photography, the video, the whole thing, but the whole group experience, and even other people mentioned it, David and Jane and all, the experience was incredible. So there we are at 11,000 feet, working with reindeers and camels and the backdrop of, oh my gosh, mountains covered in snow. And then at the farm, warm weather even, you know, in Newport Beach, you know, the strawberry fields, the horses, the flowing gowns and the models on the horses, and the GQ stud guys, you know, with the ripped abs that you just, how often do you see that, you know? And there they all working together, creating natural, real beauty. And that's so much of it. If you think about what we're doing, we're creating photos that wow you, will stop you in your tracks, drop your jaw, and it's beautiful. It really is. And so I suggest, and that's what part of what I do is I'm always helping photographers get around themselves, getting out of that same position and taking on something that is so incredible to advance them to the next level. And that's what we experience here. So I know I talk a lot, but I tell you what, it's my real sincere passion and love for what we do and helping photographers do great and better. It's just a great experience. And I love animals. I'm a dog owner, I own cats. You know, I've been in the jungles of Central America and dealt with every kind of animal you can imagine, even the ones you don't want to imagine, you know, or deal with. But it's a great experience, Kevin. And thanks for letting me speak about it. I love
Absolutely. It. I have another, we had a question that Priscilla had answered, but from Michael G, but I'd love for you to answer this one as well. He asked, besides having a strong portfolio with strong faces, what aspect is most important as well? Knowing who is who and being there at the right place at the right time, or is great marketing and getting yourself out there more important? What are your thoughts, Dan?
I love that question. You know me. So here's the whole picture. And this is why I originally came to work with you. Kevin, you exhibit and are the whole package. You figured it out at a really young age, where a lot of people, it's taken a long time to put it all together, the pieces. But it's all about the full package, which is, it's first of all, recognizing truly upfront that you are running a business. Yes, you're photographers. It's no different than running a grocery store or a clothing store. Is you run a business, you have to have the product. In this case, our product, it's the portfolio and the video these days. Having both makes you over the edge better than just the photographer. And so even if you don't want to do the video, we add that and give that to you. It's part of the package, you know. And the third thing is marketing. We can be great photographers, shoot the most incredible photos ever. And if we can't market ourselves, then it's art for art's sake. You know, we're just entertaining ourselves because we're sitting there with our product going, well, who do I talk to? You know, I remember when I was a kid, I had a sales position and the manager said, go into my office there and shut the door and sit down and sell it. I said, well, how can I do that? There's no one in there. Right, get on the phone. You know, so, but it's a really, it's so true. Is we have to figure a way that we can budget time and be okay with it and motivated to market ourselves, because that's how the money is made. We make it simple, or well, not simple. Let me backtrack. We make it possible for photographers and guide them in their way to be successful with marketing. I call it typecasting. Typecasting is you hire the person who they do it naturally, so you don't really have to work with them much. So what you do is you set it up so you take on an amount you can handle and like and are motivated to do. And as you do well with it, then you want to do more and more. So it's kind of some of the training, but you have to have the will-do attitude. You have to be able to get off the chair, off your rear end, and go do what it takes to get those jobs and to be successful, because we love it. Every photographer wants to be hired and wants to make great money doing what they love doing, which is the photography part. So it's a package. There's one last thing, if I could throw it in. I've mentioned it before, I think, on some of our webinars, but there's a mentality of success. So even if you haven't done it yet, you want to think and feel you're successful, and know that it's a learning process that's going to have some success, some errors, some maybe a little bit of failure, but it's all a part of the package of getting to that goal of making success. So you have to be okay with that, but mentally go, I'm success from the beginning, and it allows it to happen. So maybe I've said way more than you asked for, but
oh no, this is some of the secret sauce, Dan, that you're sharing with everybody, and I really appreciate it.
Full package. So you exhibit what we're working with all the photographers to accomplish, and you have the experience. So I tell all the photographers, hey, guess what? You and I have Kevin Michael Schmitz as a lifelong mentor to guide us in the areas we may not know on a day. We may have a question, what to do, someone who's already done it. So it's a rare thing in life to have the mentoring that you offer. So yeah.
I appreciate it, Dan. Thank you. That's so amazing. And guys, remember to set up a photographic consult if you haven't already, to speak to Dan or to Kara or to Priscilla, our amazing team members here. I also put in the chat an opportunity for the Branding for Photographers workshop that we're going to have on June 12th. It's not even up on our website yet. It's hasn't even really been announced, but I want to make sure that you guys get an opportunity to do that, because I'm an expert in that. I'm an expert in branding. In fact, I'm right now working on developing and branding this castle, this 49-room, 40,000 square foot castle in France, and developing a whole brand identity around it, from graphic design to photographic production to filming, to logos, even wine labels. I'm going to have my own, wine here for Chateau de Rêve Francais, the French Dream Castle, and I'm going to be creating a whole brand identity around this. And I do the same thing for each one of my photographic brands, from Kevin Schmitz to Kevin Michael Schmitz, which are different brands, fashion and lifestyle, to my television production, all aspects. Each one of them is a different brand. And I'm going to be creating, we created an epic workshop that's all done on Zoom. So you guys can tune in and do it all from Zoom. And the whole thing is going to be on developing your photographic brand, because really photography all comes down to essentially developing your brand and who you are, which is what this whole brand identity thing is about. And then it's marketing that brand, which we just did an epic workshop where it was, you know, it was crazy. We had 27 attendees of that one. And it was a huge success. And then it also comes down to closing the deal, which is all about, you know, the aspect of sales and maximizing profitability in photography, which we also have another one of those coming up as well on virtual. But I'd love for you guys to do this. If you guys attend now, go ahead and sign up through that link in the chat. You get a special deal, and you can sign up, and that entire investment goes towards any 4-day workshop as a full credit. So you end up getting it for free, which is a no-brainer. That's what all these photographers that you just heard have done as well. Now, I also want to answer a few of these questions here before we go. Richard Freeman also asked, and by the way, Richard, you're asking a lot of great questions. Let's see. He's asking about a rotolite for portrait photography and engagement portraits. What are the advantages? How much power does it give? Can I give it a high key photo with it? I mean, my preference is to use something such as a ProPhoto series of battery operated lights. I mean, they have a whole different series of them that I highly, highly recommend. I think that the ProPhoto gear is going to be my strong suggestion. They're cost a little bit more, but they're very even and consistent, and they're amazing lights. That's what I'd recommend, using a beauty dish, or if you're using a lot of portrait photography, I would use like a giant softbox. I use like a 3x4 softbox, or like a 7-foot diameter giant softbox would look really, really strong. It depends on the person you're shooting with. Also, you ask, what do you do to negate the squinting effect from the subjects from large reflectors? So I think Richard's referring specifically to an 8x8 foot bounce. So great question. If it's way too bright and we're shooting, like for instance, this is going to happen in Miami when we're shooting out there and it's just super bright and it's intense and this intense Miami sun, what we do is we just switch it to white. And I did that in Colorado when we're photographing with this amazing camel, and we're photographing with this amazing, I think it was specifically, we did it with the reindeer. It was too much reflection because of all the white snow, and it was so bright out there that I actually got kind of sunburned. So what we did is we just switched the giant bounce from silver to white. So you just flip it around, and the white is a lot less intense. So the models aren't going to be squinting as much. So hopefully that answers your question, Richard. And I highly recommend that you come and attend that experience and take that last spot in Miami, unless Jane takes it. But that's going to be an epic experience of a lifetime. Our photographic workshops are very, they're small, they're very high end, they're very elite, and they're very selective, because we want to make sure that everybody's going to have an absolutely amazing time. And last time we did Miami Beach, you know, we all went out on the town. We went out, and I took you guys out to like Argentinian food, and we just like had a great time just hanging out as a group in Miami, in addition to the massive scale epic production that we have. So make sure to join in, guys, and you know, feel free to click that link in the chat to sign up for that workshop. And remember, it basically is free, because that entire investment counts towards any of our 4-day experiences. But we have some amazing ones coming up, and you know, in addition to what we have with which I mentioned, we have Miami Beach. We've got a wedding workshop. We've got the one in on cracked earth in the desert in Las Vegas. But after that, we also have Chicago, which we will be shooting with animals. We always do at the Chicago workshop. And that's a really exceptional one that ends up becoming sold out every year. And we're going to be doing a whole like vintage Mad Men story at that one. And that'll be absolutely incredible. So if you guys get an opportunity, Chicago's amazing. And then after that, we're going to be, we have the French castle experience. So shooting here at this amazing 13th century 49-room castle in Marseille-en-Cambrai with supermodels from Paris. And it's kind of cool because I'm doing my test run here in a couple of weeks. I'm shooting a high fashion editorial on location at the castle. But this is what the castle looks like in the summertime. So it's all lush and all of the vines are out and it looks absolutely incredible. Obviously right now it's March, so the season is a little bit more drab, but it'll look absolutely stunning this summer, which I'm really excited about. So that's why we have this epic fashion experience. It's a 5-day workshop on location. We're gonna have maids, butler, we've got a masseuse, we've got a massage room in the North Tower, which is amazing. And we're actually installing a jacuzzi. It's going to be incredible. So this location is just not only an amazing place to shoot, but also a lavish place to stay. So you get to have an epic 5-day trip out here. So if you guys are interested in that as well, let us know. It's something that I'm really passionate about, obviously, because I've spent a lot of my time and investment in getting this epic experience, this amazing castle myself. But also I want to make sure that you guys have this experience yourselves and have something like this in your portfolio, because that this portfolio building opportunity is it's unparalleled. There's nothing like this anywhere in the world for a photographic opportunity, because normally these epic castles, they're usually museums, or they're usually not really accessible to stay and photograph in and have 5 days of massive scale production. So that's the really special thing about it. After that, we're going to be in New York, and we're going to be shooting with top supermodels. Like last year, we shot with models from the Dolce & Gabbana campaign, from Giorgio Armani campaign, and Versace, as well as girls that have been in Vogue, Vanity Fair, and Harper's Bazaar. So this is what we shot. In fact, David Gesbrecht had shot this, and I think Hans had shot one of these images as well. So David, that you heard from earlier, this was at New York, and this follows Fashion Week. Absolutely mind-blowing. Also, if you guys are into wedding photography, this is a really great workshop to develop high-end, world-class fashion production that also you can use to advertise to your wedding clients. This is absolutely spectacular. And if you guys are open to it too, I'm open to including animals at something like this as well. There's always that opportunity. Priscilla, you can talk to Priscilla about it. She's the expert on all things shooting people with animals. And then of course the Elite Masterclass, which we talk a lot about, where we shot with these, we shot with parachutes, we shot with horses racing across the water. We created this mind-blowing sequence, and we shot with these supermodels that have been in Vogue. This is in Los Angeles, where I'm from. And we get to create this kind of mind-blowing content just like this, with Nick Seth-Smith shot and ended up, booking an $18,000 wedding, which is really cool. So the kind of ROI on something like this is unparalleled, because the experience and the production is so over the top. And also, if you guys are interested in that Napa Valley, which I know we talked about that pretty extensively, we are not going to be doing another Winter Wonderland workshop. That's a one-off thing. And I kind of told everyone about that we've only done it twice in 12 years. But we will be doing another experience in Napa Valley, and that is going to happen in February, and we're already selling seats in that. So if you guys want to do that, that's definitely an experience of a lifetime. This was also from our one of our Elite Master classes, where we did shoot with animals for Flaunt magazine, and we shot with an unbelievable animal sequence with fashion and animals on location at the U.S. Olympic Training Facility for Equestrian. So this was another one that was pretty over the top as far as animals, and these were $500,000 horses that we got to shoot at these amazing stables, as well as we shot a hat campaign in conjunction with it, because it was essentially an advertorial for Gents and Flaunt magazine, and our photographers got published, which was pretty exceptional. And that's kind of the next step for a lot of you guys, is getting published, winning awards, and then landing big advertising campaigns. And if you can have amazing sequences with horses or alpacas or Bactrian camels or all kinds of amazing, or reindeer in your scenes, it adds a lot of value to what you can bring to the table for your clients. So definitely think about that, and think about the level and scale of production and why that's important, that's important for you guys to take it to the next level and to be more successful. So thanks, you guys. I know this was a kind of a long webinar, because I want to talk to a lot of you personally. I want to answer a lot of your questions. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate. You can ask our photographic consultants, or if you need to talk to me directly, we can schedule appointments as well. I will be here shooting at this castle for the next couple of weeks, and it will be amazing. In about a week or so, it's going to start to blossom with the cherry blossoms down the laneway. And we're on 12 acres here. And there's also Roman ruins. This is a site of a 2,000-year-old Roman palace that was here before this castle that was built in the 13th century. And General Marcellus, a famous Roman general, was actually buried here. And there's Roman road. Like my driveway is literally a Roman road. So there's all kinds of Roman roads and artifacts here, and even a Roman well in the front yard. And in the back corner, there's a 4,000-year-old Celtic ruin that's kind of like a mini Stonehenge, which is kind of cool too. So anyway, I'm going to be incorporating a lot of this cool stuff in our shoots, and I look forward to you guys joining us as well. Thank you so much for each and every one of you for joining us today on this amazing webinar on photographing people and animals, broadcast live from the castle in France. So I look forward to seeing you guys, and I can't wait to see you at these upcoming experiences. And also, please make sure to join us for one of our photographic personal consults. And I can't wait to help you take your photography to the highest level of your potential.